Hi, I'm Amanda Morrall, Personal Finance Editor with interest.co.nz.
And I'm Hickey, I'm the editor, but I'm also a KiwiSaver.
Today we're presenting the first of a series on KiwiSaver, and it's brought to you in association with AMP, and today we're going to look at the issue of fees through the eyes of one KiwiSaver.
Hickey, that's me, because I got my bit of paper which suddenly says I have some money in this KiwiSaver account. As it turns out, it's in the AMP default fund, not through any great intelligence. It's more because that's where I was accidentally put by the IRD. And because I've got this information, which I don't really understand much about, and it certainly doesn't talk to me much about performance or fees, I thought I'd come to the expert and try and use our own site to find out more about what's happening with the performance and the fees. So what we're going to do now is jump into our website. And Davis, who's our expert behind the scenes, is going to record this and put it up. And Amanda's going to show me where to go, because Amanda and Kevin, our expert behind the scenes, have built this site to be useful for KiwiSaver novices like me. So first up, we're going to find some more information about the funds and the fees associated with my fund. So Amanda, what should I do? Where should I go?
I'm glad you regard me as an expert, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert in these matters. I'm learning along the way. Where I would direct your attention to is our funds section. So if you click into our KiwiSaver at the top of the homepage.
Right, so what I'm doing now is I'm clicking on the KiwiSaver section, and
right, then you'll see a list along the right-hand side of the page. If you go into funds, you'll be able to find a list of the types of different funds that we have, and at the top there you'll see default funds. So if you click into default funds, you should be able to find your fund with AMP.
So I'm in the AMP KiwiSaver default fund, which was the one I was put into by the ARD, and now I've got this bit of paper, and now I've got this section which shows me AMP KiwiSaver default fund. And what am I looking at, Amanda? What's here?
Right, so you've got a list of the 6 default providers there. You happen to be at the top of the queue there, the AMP KiwiSaver default fund. So across the columns there, you'll see something called a gap score, an expense ratio, and then you've got 1, 2, 3 year returns and the size of the funds under management.
So what does that gap score mean?
Okay, right. So let's start with the first one there. The gap score is a ranking that we have developed. It's called the growth asset percentage. That gives you an indication of how volatile your fund might be. Because default funds were set up to be the most conservative of all the funds, you can expect the volatility of your fund to be quite low because it doesn't have as high an exposure to equities.
So a lot of the default funds have a lot of their money invested in cash and bonds.
That's right, right. So in this instance, you can't compare it to, say, a growth fund or an aggressive fund, but you could expect to find the gap ratio there to be much higher. So then moving along to the expense ratio, this is a key thing you'll want to pay attention to. This is something that we have calculated, which is sort of base fees plus these other hidden expenses that your provider may or not be fully upfront with. So this is a percentage of your fund, what you'll pay on an annual basis. Fees are quite crucial, really, and you'll see why when we return to our calculator, but they do add up over time. So
the AMP KiwiSaver default fund has a 0.91% expense ratio over the year. That's
right, and if you can compare it to the other default providers and funds there that are listed in front of you, you'll see that it's actually not. It happens to be the highest one actually, but it's still within the realm of that average there.
Now going across, I can see the performance. So the KiwiSaver scheme's been going for 3 years. I've been in the scheme for 3 years. And I can see that I had 5% the first year, 4.5% the second year, 3.1% the third year. So that's interesting. Now I want to know is how much of my fund may have been eaten up so much by...
Okay, I'll just back up and clarify something for you. So the way that we've reported these first, second, and third year annual returns is that actually the first year this is taken from a quarterly report starting, you'll see at the top of the queue, ending June 30th. So we're working from that period back in reverse. So it's actually the most recent year. So because the equities markets have actually come up slightly since the crash of the GFC, you'll see that in the past year they've actually done quite well. Your return there, your annualized return has been 5%. So the 2-year return is going back from June 30th, back in time 2 years, and therefore, and the third year goes back 3 years. So depending on who you talk to, the longer the time frame you're invested is a sort of more accurate gauge of what your fund is performing, because it sets sort of a pattern for what you're developing. So in actual fact, this fund, according to our calculations, has delivered what we have there, 3.1% returns annualized, and that's adjusting for fees. So we've taken into account what you've paid in fees and performance in that time.
So that's after fees, the 3.1%?
That's right, yes, but that's before tax. So tax would you could expect that to take another bite out of your returns as well over time.
So part of the reason I got interested in this is you did a story a day or so ago, which was about fees, and which looked at the proportion of fees which get eaten up, if you like, by the fund manager over the life of the saving, and the proportion that is here we go, how much will you pay in fees, and worked out using a calculator how this was done.
Right. Now, it's not an exact science. We've done this simply so you can get a rough idea of how much you could reasonably expect to kind of pay over a certain time frame. And so we've started off there. We've got 1, 5, 10 years, 20 years, and 40 years. And I plugged in my own numbers as an example there. I happen to be in a growth fund, which has a higher volatility, but according to the risk return theory, you can expect to get a higher return. And in this case, it's proven correct. My annualized returns over 3 years have been actually 8.2. The closest proximity I could get with our calculator was 8.5. But then I plugged in my expense ratio. My expense ratio is a bit higher in this case because with growth funds or aggressive funds, fund managers normally apply a bit of a premium on their efforts.
So that's the offset, isn't it? You might get more returns from your aggressive fund, but you also pay higher fees.
That's right. And so as to whether that fund or that fee rather is justified, it would really depend on the kind of returns that you're getting from your fund and how well your manager is performing.
So let's have a bit of a play with this calculator. So I'll jump now to the calculator itself. You can click on it from the story, which is below this video. And you can see here there's a couple of dials I can push. So my fund is returning, what is it, about 3% or so after before tax.
So I'd lower it down a bit in your case because you were 3, I think. Oh, is that as low as it go? Okay, well that's fine. I'll just give you a rough gauge, like I said. So and then you can dial into your expense ratio. In your case, it was 0.9, so you could push it up to 1. And then you'll see going along over the time frames 1, 5, 10 years, 20, 40, that it's really not until that the difference between the 20 and the 40 years is where you'll see quite an increase in the terms in the proportion of money that your fund manager will be receiving and the proportion that you'll get to take out of your account at age 65. Bernard? 65.
I'm looking forward to retirement with my KiwiSaver. That says around about 60% is mine, if you like, of the returns, and 40% or so is going back to, at this stage, AMP.
Now, bear in mind that we've kind of plotted in this 4% annual return. Returns are going to vary from year to year, as you've seen from the 1, 2, and 3 year results that we've had. So who knows what the markets are going to do, right? But it just gives you a general indication of how much impact fees can have on the amount of money that you'll be taking out at the end of the day.
Excellent. Well, that was useful. Thank you very much. I'm learning this KiwiSaver stuff slowly.
No problem. Come back anytime, Bernard. I'm Amanda Morrall with interest.co.nz, and this has been an introductory series for our KiwiSaver section.